Kyoto, a city that is considered the cultural capital of Japan and a major tourist destination, home to numerous temples, shrines, and green tea. But that's not why we are here. We are here for ramen. Kyoto might not be known as ramen city, but there are wide varieties of ramen here, including Kyoto's own style of ramen, Shoyu Ramen. So we will start with that. This is our first destination that sells Kyoto style ramen, which is a soy sauce ramen. It is a simple ramen with some spring onions on top, some CHASHU pork, thick looking noodles, and a really dark broth. So let's start with the broth. It's very salty, and the soy sauce is very strong. I guess that's to be expected with how dark the broth is. And I was told to put the spicy miso paste. So let's add that into the broth. It adds a little bit of heat, so you don't get bored of the soy sauce flavor. Next, let's try the noodle. The noodle is pretty thick and chewy, maybe a little bit too thick, but I guess it balances out with the strong broth. As for the pork, it tastes like a regular CHASHU pork. So there is a really long line besides the ramen shop, which turns out to be another ramen shop, and apparently it is very popular, so we'll go back and try it out. There's even long line at 4 PM on Monday, so I hope it is worth the wait. We still have a lot of ramen to eat, but luckily they have a mini ramen, so we will get that. Here is our mini bowl of ramen. Similar to our first ramen, this is also Kyoto style ramen, with spring onions and some CHASHU pork. But the noodles are thin, and the broth is not as dark as the other one. Oh yeah, that's nice. You can still taste the soy sauce, but it is not overwhelming and it is more savory. Noodle is pretty thin but quite firm. It matches well with the broth. But the same thing with their CHASHU pork. Nothing special. It's not their main selling point, I guess. I think the main star of this ramen is the broth. Our next stop is located in this small alley, but there's no obvious sign of a ramen shop. But if you go through the small door and go inside, you will find a vending machine. The specialty of this shop is motsu, but I'm not a fan of it, so I will go with CHASHU. I was happy that there was no line in front of the shop, but I was wrong. There was a line inside the shop. Luckily, the wait is not that long before I finally get my ramen. They call it CHASHU ramen, but honestly the CHASHU doesn't look appetizing. However, let's not judge a CHASHU by how it looks, but by how it tastes. No, it's quite underwhelming. It's not bad, but nothing special either. We got sidetracked by the CHASHU. I forgot to try the broth first. Oh, that's nice. It is rich and has a nice smoky fish flavor. And the noodle is kinda al dente, so it goes well with the thick broth. The unique thing about this place, apart from the somewhat hidden place, there are spices inside the drawer. They have garam masala, Japanese pepper, chili pepper, and a regular pepper. So you can customize the taste to your liking. Our fourth location is a ramen shop that won quite a number of awards. And finally we have ramen with delicious looking CHASHU. But let's not get ahead and try out the broth first. It tastes pretty light. I was expecting a heavy broth, but it was creamy and slightly salty. And it is paired with a thin and chewy noodles. Now the moment of truth. Will this taste as good as it looks? Oh yeah, that's good. It is thick but very tender. And it has a nice smoky and fatty flavor to it. The CHASHU is the main star of this ramen. Our final location is something that I wanted to try for years now. The Fire Ramen. They were closed during the pandemic, but finally they are back in business. That was hot. Because the green onions was grilled, it brings out a nice fragrance. As usual, let's try the broth first. That's pretty unique. It's not spicy, it is savory and a bit oily. And the green onions help enhance the flavor. It also adds a nice crunch. It also comes with a slice of CHASHU pork. And the noodle is firm, but still has a nice chewiness to it. Other than the experience, the ramen itself is pretty delicious, especially the broth. So that is it for this Kyoto ramen tour. We had a lot of ramens, and they are all delicious. If you want to try Kyoto style ramen, this is the place to go. Just make sure to avoid lunch or dinner time. Otherwise, get ready to wait in a long line. Or if you want something delicious and fun, the Fire Ramen is the place to go. That was certainly a fun experience. But if you prefer a light ramen, you can check out my other video on a Michelin Guide ramen in Kyoto. So that's gonna do it for now. As always, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.